today we're going to talk about a fictitious service provider. So everything that I'm going to talk about is going to be in the context of this service provider that we often use called Parka Energy Services. And I want to tell you a little bit about Parka before I get into the challenges that they're facing that's going to motivate us to talk about the complex pricing strategy, the best practice that Parka is using and how they're solving these problems and achieving these goals. So Parka is a global energy provider. They're specifically in the upstream oil and gas service provider space with field locations all across the globe, providing a variety of services all the way from drilling related services to completions and production and everything in between. This is a very common profile of a customer that we work with at Liquid Frameworks. It's worth noting, though, that we also have a lot of people that have to solve the same problem that are highly focused in one particular segment, maybe two segments, and they might not be a turnkey provider from start to finish. But in Parka's case, for the purposes of today, we're going to look at a company that cuts across a wide spectrum of services. And they have some specific objectives. These are corporate objectives at a high level that they've decided that they want to solve in 2018. And these objectives are going to motivate us to come up with some tactical solutions and some strategic solutions on how Parka is going to structure their business and do business from a pricing perspective. So all that I'm talking about right now is used to set the stage to get us to the point of discussing the complex pricing issues. There's a lot that goes into to all of this pricing related information. So the objectives for Parka this year are that they would like to achieve what I call the four-way match. The four-way match being compliance and consistency across the price book, the quote, the ticket, and the invoice. With that, we get more accurate invoices, we get more timely invoices. By doing that, we get paid faster. When we get paid faster, our cash flow improves, and everybody likes improved cash flow. But equally as important, we are really wanting to make sure that at Parka, we get great control over our margins. And the way we're going to get great control over our margins is we're going to put in a model that allows us to manage all of these complicated pricing scenarios that are out there. And we're going to eliminate rogue pricing and rogue discounting. We're going to do that by putting in this strategy that will ultimately be enforced by a system, the system being FieldFX. So with all this increased efficiency and all the more accurate invoicing and ticketing and better process overall, this will all inevitably result in increased customer sat. So there are a handful of things that we need to look at as far as tactical goals that will need to be achieved in order to support these corporate objectives. So the objectives are one thing, but the boots on the ground doing the work, that's really where the rubber meets the road. And we've got to talk about how that works in order that we might be able to solve and achieve those objectives. So we want to look at how does work get initiated, how does it get quoted, and how does it get priced? And when I'm talking about pricing, I'm talking about pricing it from the perspective of a quote, a field ticket, and an invoice. So we start with how the work gets initiated. And so we have a couple of different types of work. We have MSA-based work and non-MSA-based work, and I'm going to talk about a combo as well. So MSA-based work, Master Service Agreement, that is work where we have a contract in place with a customer. And so that contract consists of pre-negotiated pricing where we've got a contract that's done with our existing customers. So it's not necessarily a new customer, it's an existing customer. We've got all that pricing done and established. We also have work that I call call-out work. And call-out work could be for a new customer, but it could also be for an existing customer. But the important thing to note is that it's being done where there's no established pricing. So we do not have a contract in place. There's no MSA in place. So two different types of work that demand two different types of pricing strategies. But we have a combination of those two types of work whereby an existing customer calls in and says to our sales engineer, hey, I'd like you to come out and do X, Y, and Z service. And some of those things might be on a contract that's pre-negotiated, but some of them might not be. So we don't want to hinder that sales process and make our sales engineer go out and find all of that pricing information, or worse, have to tell the customer, hey, I can't quote you that because we didn't pre-negotiate a price on it. The customer doesn't care. They still want the information. They need the items quoted or the services quoted. And so we really don't want to burden our salesperson with having to go figure that out. If we do, we're going to have a very upset salesperson, and that is not something we want to do either. What we really want is we really want that salesperson to not really care. We don't want them beaming and glowing with the process, but we just want it to fade into the fabric of their daily life. We just want it to work and flow without them having to figure out, where does the price come from? Does it come from a contract? Does it come from somewhere else? So in order to achieve that, what I'm going to talk about is the various components that we have in FieldFX to solve that. And so before I get into that, though, we're really going to talk more at a high level. So I'm not really going to get into all of the configuration of FieldFX, that kind of thing. I'm really going to talk about the practice itself and how to structure the business in order to achieve these things. So even looking at FieldFX, though, from a module perspective, we're not even going to look at all these modules. We're really only going to be focused on the pricing related components, and of those, we're going to hone in on various ways to solve the pricing problem. So there's a lot of tools that come along with FieldFX that can handle the strategy that we're talking about. So right now there's all these that you see here that are related to kitting and packaging and rental-based prices and just a whole variety of these. And when we layer on the additional tools that we have coming from something called override pricing and multi-price book transactions, you can see that the landscape gets quite large as far as the tools that are at our disposal with which to use to solve and model and solve this complex pricing issue. And so a lot of times what customers ask me is they say, boy, we just have all these different tools at our disposal. What's the best way to go about doing this? And back up a little bit more and tell us how we should set things up so that we can best leverage the best practice that you often see out there in the space. And so people can sometimes get a little overwhelmed and say, we've got all these different tools, a bunch of different ways to solve it. How should we structure things so that at the end of the day, we have a resulting implementation and product and process that is elegant and that is robust and scalable and will work on a global basis for an enterprise class service provider.